McLaren officially announced just moments ago, guys, that Daniel Ricciardo's departure will happen at the end of the season. Another driver's future is determined before the end of the year. And, Nate, you had reported that this was coming. We knew that it was eventually going to take place, but now it's officially official. Can you just kind of take us back and give us a timeline of how all of this went down for Daniel Ricciardo and McLaren?
Yeah, it's kind of nuts, isn't it, to think we're actually talking about this. I mean, it's not a shock in the context of the last few weeks, but it is a shock. If you said this at the start of the season, that Daniel Ricciardo wasn't going to be driving beyond this season at McLaren, it would have seemed wild. And it's really kind of interesting to try and get your head around this and try and really dig into this, because it has been simmering away for a little while. And I think that this is, we're going to hear more from Zach Brown and from Daniel Ricciardo today and tomorrow in the lead up to the race. But from everything I understand, this really started percolating around Monaco Grand Prix time. Now, this is the famous time now, infamous time now, that Zach Brown was in at the Indy 500. And he said, we've got mechanisms in Ricciardo's contract that we can exercise if we want to. And that was a quote that wasn't actually true. Like, they didn't have those mechanisms in the contract. Otherwise, they would have exercised them. The reason this has taken 3 weeks for McLaren to confirm is they've been working out a financial settlement with Ricciardo to get him out of that contract a year early, as you mentioned, Katie. So that was the first hint that we really got that McLaren were even considering this. And Ricciardo, Laurence will remember this as well. I think every race since then, every Thursday when we have media day since then, there's been some form of question posed to Daniel Ricciardo about this, about his future, and it's all kind of stemmed from that quote. And I don't think the Piastri link was there in May, but I think that the thought was there in Zach Brown's head in May that maybe this isn't the right thing. Maybe this isn't the right partnership for us going forward. I think originally the idea was Colton Herta, but I think that as the last few weeks leading up to the summer break came about, the talks between Piastri's manager, who is Mark Webber, and Andreas Seidel, who used to work with Webber in World Endurance Championship, they have a very good relationship there. They kind of intensified, and it became very clear that this opening existed for Piastri. We talked about it on the last pod about how Alpine have bungled this situation so badly that they've effectively just let Piastri drop into McLaren's lap like that. And I think everything came together over the past kind of 2 weeks. I know that Zach Brown met Piastri properly ahead of the French Grand Prix. It wasn't a long meeting. They exchanged pleasantries, they chatted. Most of the conversation has been done by Andreas Seidel, but by the end of the Hungarian Grand Prix is when Ricciardo was told, we don't want to continue with you beyond this year. Yeah, so we know now Ricciardo won't be driving there next season. It seems like Piastri, there's one hurdle left for McLaren. They have the FIA contract recognition board. I understand that's next Wednesday. That's being held. Okay. And every indication from people in the paddock is that McLaren have got him, that contract will be watertight. But of course, it has to go through that process, and there might be a twist of the tail. I mean, given this season, I wouldn't write off that contract recognition board turning around and saying, actually, Piastri, you have to race for Alpine, which would be an incredible development to this, because I don't know what McLaren would do at that point. Sure. But that seems very unlikely. So that, once we get that, we will then have the confirmation that Piastri is racing there. But that is, the implication from this move today. It's a huge move. It's a huge gamble to do that, especially for a rookie that's not driven a car in Formula One in a race weekend before. It's a huge statement of what people think of Piastri and how much he's rated. So, yeah, huge gamble for McLaren. I'm surprised they did do it. And I think it puts a lot of pressure on them. I think it puts a lot of pressure on Piastri to perform and deliver, but we'll see how it plays out. We obviously won't know whether this was the right call for at least a year, maybe a bit longer. I think Piastri is obviously a long-term project, but I think his performances next year, I don't know. I think most rookies get a bit of leeway, but he might be under a bit more pressure than a normal rookie would, just given the circumstances of him coming in. But yeah, big news to kick off the weekend. This is what's great about coming out of the summer break, is it seems like we always have something to get our teeth into, and this is as big a story as you can get in Formula One. I mean, Daniel Ricciardo, for a lot of people, he is their favorite driver. So this, it's a wild way to kick off the second half of the season for sure.
Well, the natural follow-up question as we wait for word on Piastri, as you mentioned, a week from now, the natural follow-up is, well, what's next for Daniel Ricciardo? And rumors are already swirling. There's been a rumor that Gunther Steiner, team principal at Haas, has had a telephone conversation with Ricciardo. Obviously, some people think, well, are we just going to see a swap and Ricciardo's going to, drive for Alpine next year? Laurence, what do you make of some of these rumors, and what do you actually foresee happening for Ricciardo moving forward?
Well, I've no doubt that there's been conversations from both ways. Any team that's got a space and they're looking at Daniel as a potential, there would have been a conversation that way. And likewise, now it doesn't mean that they're on the brink of securing a contract or anything like that. When you look at Daniel's options, you've got to say Alpine's the top one. He's going from a team in McLaren that is fighting Alpine currently for fourth in the championship. And actually, at times, Alpine's looking like the better of those two teams. So that would be the obvious thing, wouldn't it? But I think what we've learned from the last month is don't always go with the obvious thing until it's been confirmed. Because, if you'd asked us shortly after the Alonso announcement, we said, well, of course, Piastri's going there. He's the reserve driver. He's going to be the Alpine driver. But of course, he had that contract with McLaren, and then that all kicked off, and that's where we are now. So, it's interesting. My one hope out of all this is that Netflix have kept the cameras rolling throughout the summer break and have had some insight there, because, look, Nate has done a fantastic job of reporting on this. He's had some good contacts around about. But yeah, if Netflix are in there and they've got some of those initial reactions, real reactions to what was going on, that is going to make for some brilliant viewing just ahead of next year, which of course will be a great way to kick off the new season, and Piastri coming in at McLaren and seeing him in that orange race, see that orange car go out and try and compete with Ricciardo, hopefully will to will, assuming Ricciardo lands something. But I think it would obviously be such a shame to lose Ricciardo. I think we need him in F1. He's had a bad couple of years at McLaren. He will admit that. I don't think anyone's questioning that. You can understand to some extent why McLaren have made the decision they have. And I think, Daniel will understand a bit of that himself. So he knows he hasn't been at the top level. But the last time we really saw him compete well was when he was at Renault, which of course was the old Alpine team. For anyone relatively new to F1, Renault changed its name to Alpine. So perhaps going back into that environment might be exactly what he needs, and it might kickstart his career again. So that's my hope. But yeah, I just really hope we don't lose Daniel. But given the interest we've heard about, the rumours, and everything that's come out of the paddock, even as recently as the days after Hungary, I don't think he's going to be without a drive next year.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content plus live streaming, make sure to subscribe to ESPN Player.